Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's SPK and Associates vlog entitled Inside the Digital Thread, Real Stories from Integrated Engineering Teams. My name is Michael Roberts. I'm Vice President of Sales and Marketing here at SPK and Associates, and today we're going to go beyond the buzzwords to talk about what actually happens when engineering systems are disconnected and what changes organizations can use to finally connect them. So many engineering teams today are still dealing with siloed systems across ALM, PLM, DevOps, quality, and manufacturing. That disconnect often creates duplicate work, poor visibility, slower changes in those systems, and compliance challenges that impact the entire product development process. But when organizations successfully create a digital thread across those systems, the impact can really be significant, from improved traceability and collaboration to faster innovation and better business outcomes. And so, to help us unpack this in a real world approach today, I'm joined by two experts who have helped many organizations solve those exact challenges. So, I'd like to introduce these two. We'll start with Aparna. Feel free to introduce yourself.
Hey, hi, Michael. Hi, everyone. I'm Aparna Garg. I work with OpsHub Technologies. OpsHub and SPK have been partners for some time, and I have been working with OpsHub for last 17 years. Just clocked my 17th work anniversary last week, and I've been doing integration for 17 years of my life. And happy to be here.
Congratulations. That's awesome. 17
That is
years.
awesome.
That's awesome. Carlos.
Of course, I'm the old dude, so 17, you're still a young pup. I spent over 20 some years in the world of
Oh,
chip designing and software development at Cadence, where I ran the operations group. So we were at ISV. We produce software to place and route and set up your design before you go into the fab for tape out. So as a developer, I was one of those folks who ran teams that we were using all these tools, and we were dealing with, how do we get our tools to work together? And SPK brought all that on board. Been working with Michael, really dug into the world of regulated spaces, because Cadence was basically working a lot of commercial companies, but now we're definitely focused a lot on aerospace, med device, automotive, and again, really highlighting the need to have tools flow together. You're going to hear a little bit more about that today. So looking forward to talking to you guys.
And welcome both of you. No two more experienced people I think that we could have to talk about this topic. So I really want to focus on, real world stories, real challenges, measurable outcomes, and I think everybody's going to love this video at the end of the day. So Carlos, I want to start with you. You've worked with a lot of engineering teams that are struggling with ALM and PLM. So can you share a real example of where that lack of integration caused pain? Maybe delays, duplicate work, or compliance issues, and then maybe how that team turned things around once their tools were connected.
So you're asking me to bring the pain, is what I heard? Okay, so sure, the problem is that most engineering groups do not operate in one vendor ecosystem. So one team may be managing requirements and risk in a tool like Codebeamer, or some other vendor. Another team may be doing development work or testing in something like Azure DevOps, maybe connecting off to Atlassian and Jira, and having to manage that data flowing between all the different systems, your PLM, your BOM area. So the tool vendors understand this problem, right? So, and a few of them have some pretty decent integrations as a starting point. For example, PTC, which, disclaimer, we are partners with PTC as well, has a really nice integration between Codebeamer and Atlassian's Jira. So with PTC, you also have the open services for lifecycle collaboration, which is the standard. So those tools that understand OSLC, often there's an integration path to get you there. And that's great. But that is a short list. Very, very quickly, you discover that those particular tools are outside that list, and that happens all the time. And at that point, you need something broader, more flexible than whatever the single vendor came up with their out of the box. And that's where a great partner such as OpsHub really is valuable to us as a implementer and validator and company that helps these companies be successful. OpsHub provides a large library of connectors across ALM, DevOps, test management, ITSM, and all these related tools. And where there's not an existing connector, you can create one. You can have a custom connector built. And that is typically way more practical than trying to build and maintain your own one-off RESTful API integration from scratch. I love about that. Another thing which is really great, I really like OpsHub in that they support an on-premises deployment. Because a lot of our regulated customers in med device and automotive, aerospace, they're not really comfortable with the requirements and risk data, evidence data, other compliance artifacts flowing to a SaaS integration outside the controlled environment. And they get really nervous about that. So the ability to deploy an integration platform on-prem can really help remove that major barrier to adoption. And that makes all our lives easier. So just a little bit. So we had an aerospace company that was migrating from IBM Rational Team Concert into Codebeamer. And this wasn't like a small 1-week conversion. It involved a large engineering environment with many teams. And those teams could not all move together at the same time. And the legacy RTC system didn't have a nice way to extract data out as simple migration path into Codebeamer. So what we were able to do with OpsHub, because another awesome thing about them is the interim migration effort, right? How to move data without causing disruption and maintain synchronizing between both. So we were able to take advantage of OpsHub's connection with RTC, build that into Codebeamer, and start pushing the data over, and then selectively turn off those particular syncs once the teams were on board. So again, a pain. OpsHub removed the pain on that one, which was amazing. And then another one I'll mention real quick. We had a customer who was doing Azure DevOps for their testing, verification, and validation. And their ALM was also a PTC product in the Codebeamer space. There wasn't an integration from the vendor on either side. So we were having to deal with requirements data, coverage data, basically having to maintain that full traceability in between. So we had a problem. And the other part, this happens very often, the ADO team did not want to move off. They were like, no, we like our tool. See ya. And the other part was like, yeah, but we tried to build this digital thread. Everything needs to talk to each other. Nah, we don't really, no, I think we'll stay here. So OpsHub was able to help us there because they were able to build an on-premises integration with ongoing synchronization between all the verification and validation artifacts, test plans, etc., back into Codebeamer, which tied together your requirements and risks, etc. So, ta-da, you got to have your cake and eat it too. So I'll pass that back to you. I can keep going all day, but it's a lot of great stories that we have with.
No, that's good. Good
with
stories,
OpsHub,
Carlos.
yeah.
I love especially the real one of we like ADO and we're not moving off of it. I
Yeah.
feel like
No,
that's a
you got
very
to
common.
cross your hands like that
Welcome to
when you
enterprises.
say that. Yeah. Got to have an
No
attitude.
one wants to change.
All right, so Aparna, obviously Carlos talked about how OpsHub has a huge role to play in connecting the dots between those systems. So from your perspective, what's the biggest mistake organizations make when they're trying to integrate those tools, and how can they avoid that?
So that's a great question. And we see the same pattern again and again across the organizations. And in fact, when Carlos was like sort of sharing his views, I noticed he used word pain and change almost like in every sentence. And that is one of the biggest mistake that teams, organizations do. They underestimate the amount of change or pain and integration can cause if not done right. So integration is often taken as a one-time technical project instead of an ongoing business capability. As a result, it is treated as because it is treated as a one-time project. Only decision anchor is cheaper pricing. And without prioritizing reliability, high quality data sync, how much to integrate to create the digital thread across the systems, how many extra steps an engineer or the user in ADO will have to take. So the integration needs to be seamless. So what that looks like in the real world is the team says, we need our Jira to talk to PLM system, or let's connect ServiceNow with our dev tools. The point-to-point connection is built with scripts, with APIs, because integration or digital thread is considered a very easy problem to solve. So, we can build it ourselves. So data gets simplified or lost, updates are delayed, inconsistent, and teams start second guessing the data. So they don't trust the data they are seeing. And now that creates two problems. Integration is fragile and the data coming through is not trustworthy. Coming to your second part of the question, that is how teams can avoid it, how organizations can avoid it. So in very three simple shifts they can make that can make a huge difference. First is thinking integration in terms of data flow and not tool connections. So organizations can start with the question, what information needs to move and how accurate and complete it needs to be on both the sites or in all the sites. And not to start with the question, I need to connect X tool with Y tool. Second is design the digital thread, design the integration for high fidelity from day one. It is not enough for data to move. It has to move correctly and completely. That means making sure what users see in one system truly reflects the other system. When the sync is reliable, teams trust the system, and that is when adoption happens. Third is design for change from day one. Organizations often overload the users with additional steps to create the digital thread. Either they need to go into third system to create the digital thread, or they need to manually trigger the sync. That means training the whole team bottom up on how to use the tools. Here, one team is not ready to give away on ADO. Now we are asking that team to change their way of working. So the digital thread integration should be seamless. And actually, one more thing, I said three, but there's one more which organizations can do. Treat integration as a shared layer and not as a one-off build. So integration should support multiple teams, use cases, systems. Organizations need to centralize the logic, make it reusable, rather than restarting it from scratch every time they have to integrate a new system or a new project. So the digital thread just need to work. It should not require manual steps or hard push. It should not require an effort. As soon as it becomes effortless, it will work.
And that you mentioned the last part about, how do you get adoption, and if it just works, then everybody's keen to use it, right? Like you start
Don't have to
trusting
do
it.
anything. It just works.
Just works. Okay, so now let's twist that. Now we know the right way to approach it. So given the integrations that you've seen with clients, what like measurable results do those clients typically see? Is it faster change cycles or better traceability or smoother audits? And then how did connecting the digital thread actually change the way that those engineers work day to day? Obviously, not having to like look in different systems, but also not having to worry about it. Like what are the things you've seen?
Actually, if you think about it, most of the customers who come to SPK and OpsHub, they are already doing some form of integration. It is just not called that. Some teams are exchanging data over email. Some teams are maintaining spreadsheets. Some are manually updating multiple systems. So the real question these teams need to answer is what changes when that same integration starts happening automatically in real time, without someone manually maintaining spreadsheets or maintaining manually updating multiple systems. So we asked this question to many of our customers from semiconductor, defense, aerospace, government, like multiple. And one common answer we hear is they are simply more confident in what they are delivering. They are more confident in the quality. They are more confident in the data they are auditing and reporting on. So that confidence comes from having that connected, reliable data across the system, because they know the data they are seeing in the system, it is traced, it is up to date. The same data is being available to the other teams as well. So from there, the measurable results show up very clearly in three areas, because now teams trust the data. So the first measurable impact or outcome is faster change cycles. Because once the integrations are in place, the data flows automatically. Teams stop waiting on each other. Change happens automatically and everyone sees the update in real time. So decisions happen much faster because the context is always current. The teams move from working in batches to continuous flow, because as soon as a system architect will update the design or will update the model, it will be immediately visible to PLM, the product manager in PLM tool. It will be immediately visible. It will immediately go for approval, let's say in IBM doors. Then the second impact is complete traceability. So traceability is created automatically from change requests to requirements to design, development, testing. The full life cycle is always visible. The teams don't have to ask anymore, can we trace this? They already can at any point in time. And the third impact is audit becomes much, much smoother. We all must have heard this is year end. Audit cycle is going on. I'll be coming late home. So this is how traditionally audits were. Stressful last minute exercise. And from accounting team to auditing team, everyone is just getting the audits right. So full data from multiple systems, rebuild traceability, and like teams would spend weeks preparing reports. But with a connected digital thread, the data is already connected. So it's like report can be generated with just one click without any manual assembly. So organizations move to being always ready instead of preparing last minute meals with whatever ingredient is available.
Yeah, the words last minute is emphasized there.
Yes, yes, yes. So yeah, I think so before integrations, engineers spend time switching between tools to get the context, updating multiple systems. And after the digital thread is connected, engineers, they stay in their own tool. They don't have to go outside ADO or IBM or PTC or any other tool. And data comes to their system, what the data they need, and they can see upstream, downstream impact instantly. So that is a real outcome. Engineers are not maintaining data anymore. They're focused on engineering work.
Which is builds so much more trust, obviously, in the data when you don't have to spend time at audit time. I think that in and of itself should be a win, but there's obviously other areas too, from the traceability component and change cycles and all that. So great stuff, Aparna. So Carlos, last question for you. As you obviously know, we've worked with OpsHub a lot in the past and with different clients. So can you walk us through a little bit of a success story where OpsHub has helped bridge multiple tools to really create that digital thread, and what were the key outcomes that prove the integration's value? What did the customer love about it?
So the aerospace company I talked a little bit about, that was I'll get into that, but I want to say like the real main value is even be able to build this thread. Once you have that, you get all those benefits. As a partner mentioned, complete end-to-end visibility, auditability, and rapid access to real-time data. So to me, that's stress reduction. I don't know how many audits you've sat in, and I've sat in a few, whether it was a FDA auditor, we're in this, war room, and show us this, show us that, and everyone's scurrying around the company. The company's like in a frozen mode because we don't know, we can't do anything, we're doing an audit. If your data isn't syncing up and you can't pull that at your fingertips, that's stress, right? So stress reduction, I'll have to put it in there. Higher quality, there's the old adage, if you fix it early in your process, it costs X. If you fix it later, it costs X, exponential. If you have to fix it when you release it to the customer, now you're talking an order of magnitude cost to your company. And that's a basic atom. And then time to market. So one of the things SPK really focuses on is working with engineering teams to help companies release their products to market faster. It's a very competitive world. So with good integration with tools, you get rapid access to that data. You can course correct more often. You often can do more sprints and turn the crank faster because everything is flowing. So faster time to market. And then, of course, and I'm not even going to mention AI in this meeting. Oh, damn it, I mentioned it. Anyway, lower amount of resources used up, right? When your teams are scurrying around trying to pull that data, starting to stitch together all that stuff, it's a nightmare, and it just burns your cycles. So again, I want to emphasize this is non-trivial for a regulated company like MedDevice. Um, you can't really assemble your trace relationships easily right before an audit. It needs to be built dynamically. And OpsHub allows us to have that built in at the fingertips traceability. It needs to be current, it has to be available at any point in the life cycle. It's not just audits, it's just basically different phases you have to go through. You start with your user needs, your intended use, flows into product system requirements. That will drive design specifications, software requirements, hardware components, parts, materials, eventually into the product BOM. That's in your PLM. It's just mind spinning, right? And then from there, you got your requirements and test cases, verification, evidence. And then the risk management side, in med device, we're dealing a lot with sourcing hazards and doing risk mitigations and FMEA grids. And those mitigations need to be verified and validated. That's a lot. And then, of course, we haven't even talked about the DevOps side, right? You have to be able to connect your development team, pull requests into your code commits and down to your repos, back and forth, and generate a pipeline. So my head is spinning, right? Just thinking of all this stuff, and companies that try to assemble this on their own, they suffer. And back to Aparna's point, yeah, you can build your API, on your own. But if I had a nickel for every time a company said, "Oh, we'll just build it because we're, blah 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 blah," 6 months later, they're still mucking around with it, trying to get it to work, right? It's nonsense. And at the same time, the clock is ticking, and those developers who should be working on your product, they're off mucking around something else. That's not your core competencies, not how you make money. So seriously, you need to kind of focus on getting this part solved and building the digital thread. So again, I just want to say thank you to OpsHub because it's relieved the stress for me. When I go to a customer, there's a huge amount of tools out there. I talked about Codebeamer, but the SO, JAMA, the IBM ELM, you name it, Polarian. And that's just the ALM, PLM side. I even talked about the GitLabs of the world and all those other pieces and Atlassian ecosystem. I wouldn't know what to do if I had to every time start over with another tool and okay, we want to help you out, but we don't have an easy way. Let's build these things on APIs. And we used to do that. We were one of those companies that will go off and try to make something for you and take the time to do it. So again, I just want to thank OpsHub for being there, and we've had a lot of great engagements together. It's really helped the customer be successful. So thank you, OpsHub. Thank you, Aparna.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, guys. It's always our pleasure to work with you guys. All the engagement have been pretty smooth, and the way you manage the projects, manage the expectation, that's the hard part. No, we can provide the solution with managing the expectation, managing the project, managing the requirements. That's the most difficult part for in any engagement. So always a pleasure to work together.
Well, look at this. Look at I appreciate part. I appreciate the kind words. I guess I need to send you that check now. The, for the kind words. I appreciate it.
Wait,
That's right.
I talk more.
So one of the biggest takeaways I think I get from this conversation is that the digital thread is really not just about integrating tools. It's about getting better outcomes, better decision making, improved collaboration, reducing risk, helping audits, and ultimately helping engineering teams move faster to get their product to market with greater confidence in the process. So Carlos, Aparna, thank you both for sharing your insights and experiences today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carlos. Thanks, Michael.
So if your organization is struggling with disconnected systems across ALM, PLM, DevOps, quality, manufacturing, or anything else, obviously the teams at SPK and Associates and our partners at OpsHub would love to help you evaluate your current environment and identify opportunities to create a more connected digital thread. So thanks again for watching. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to subscribe to the SPK and Associates YouTube channel for more discussions around engineering transformation, digital thread, AI, DevOps, PLM, and modern engineering practices. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.